Welcome to Speak to Tisha. Today we have Mauricio Alegria on the show. Now, Mauricio is a business-to-business professional. However, we're bringing him on the show today because of his intellect. Now, Mauricio and I, we do go back a ways because we are good friends. So, Mauricio, I want to welcome you to the show today. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, and thank you for having me on your show.
Absolutely. I'm so excited that you're a part of this great venture that we're going on. Mauricio, I wanted to start it out with a few things that I've noticed on your social media. I've noticed that you have a very positive outlook on life. So can you tell me where this comes from?
Just in general life, obstacles that I've gone through. I mean, life shows you different paths, and it's up to you to decide whether you want to you want to go left or right. You come to a fork in the road. You know, life teaches you either you learn or you just dwell on the past, and you just basically learn how to make different decisions. And through all the things that I've gone through, I've tried to stay positive because it just gets me further in life, and my outlook on everything seems better and brighter. I mean, everything seems to be there's so many things wrong in this world now that I don't want to add it to my life.
And that's a good way to view things, and you are right. I mean, there are so many things that are happening in this world that are so negative. And what I really love about you is that, you know, when you're looking at things, you look at them from a very positive lens. And I also know that you are from El Salvador, and I'm sure that there are some cultural differences when it comes to being raised in a family dynamic. What is it that you notice being raised in El Salvador as it's compared to the United States? Are there certain differences that you notice? What has helped you mold your path to where you are today?
Well, it's helped me in the way that, I mean, you tend to take things for granted the older I've gotten. Because I came here at 6 years old, months from turning 7 years old, and it wasn't that hard of a transition since I was so young. It was easier for me to pick up the language, the culture, and everything. But I've learned that going back home, because I still go back and visit, the cultural difference is that it's a big difference, and there's a lot of things that are taken for granted. I was talking to a friend just yesterday about, and even just the plain simple as running water, electricity. I mean, the government controls everything as far as that goes, and you have to adjust in a certain way that there's days that you don't even have running water over there. And as far as, and in the culture, I mean, I came here as very young, so I'm actually more Americanized. It's very hard for me to really know what my culture is because I've learned as I go. And as I get older, I'm learning more of my actual heritage, my roots. But most of my culture is more Americanized because since I was 6 years old, I came here. I've only known the American way. And I've had to, within my path, I've had to go backwards to try to learn more about my roots. Even though, I mean, my mother, we're first generation immigrants here. My brother and my sister are actual first generation here, born in the States. And, you know, through them, I mean, most cultures the stuff that I face as far as culture goes more for the holidays and stuff like that. I know that they have a different, like, Mother's Day. I celebrate more of the American side just because I was mainly raised here.
Interesting. Now, do you feel that you get judged because you are more Americanized as opposed to being from El Salvador?
Yeah, I think I've for a while I've faced a little bit of confusion because it's weird because I'm here in the States and I'm very Americanized, and it's hard, I guess, for the culture here to accept me as an American because I don't look American. My heritage is not American, but I'm very Americanized. Taking this culture here back home, they don't see me as one of them as well because my culture and the way I speak, even in Spanish, I don't have an accent like they do. I don't use the slang like they do. I don't fit in as like a local. So I'm kind of like in limbo in per se, you know, in between both. But I've learned to just accept it and go with the flow of things because there's only one thing that I can control is my actions, and I cannot control other people's actions.
Excellent point. And what I want to also ask is, because you say that, you feel like maybe being in limbo. Do you feel like you don't belong at times? Do you feel like you don't belong here in the United States? You don't belong in El Salvador? How does that, work with you?
Yeah, I mean, I've thought about it, and sometimes I've half felt like that. Not anymore, because now, like I said, I'm comfortable in my own skin. I'm comfortable with the world. I accept things as they are. I'm not going to try to change things, not trying to reinvent the wheel. Life is what it is. It did affect me back in days that I was just like, okay, because I felt more American, but I knew I was Salvadorian. So it did affect me. And I've learned to adjust with it.
Let me ask you this. Now, you say it did affect you. So how did it affect you?
Just the fact that, trying to be part of this world. I mean, if growing up, most of my family tried to just basically surround themselves with Latin people. Because that's what they're comfortable with. But growing up, my family still surrounds themselves more so with Latin people, but I'm very Americanized, so it does affect me that I don't feel like I do fit in, and it makes me feel uncomfortable because they could tell their inside jokes. They have these little things that they can feed off of each other. They know their culture, my roots, and it feels weird not knowing or being able to participate in those things.
Excellent point. Now, let me ask you this. If you were coming over to this country now, okay, what do you feel that you would experience if you were, coming to, to the United States now, as opposed to when you were little? When you were little, of course, you came over with your family. But in light of what's going on in the arena of the world and what's going on in the U.S., how do you feel? What do you feel the difference are? Are there obstacles? What do you think about that?
It would be a lot more difficult nowadays, because I've told people my story as how I immigrated over here. I mean, I am an illegal immigrant. I am legalized now. I've gone through the process and everything, but when I came here, it was a lot easier. I mean, and I do have a conflict with certain things as far as how things are now, because now living here for so long, that there's some things that I do agree as far as, I won't go as far as saying building the wall or anything like that, but there has to be rules and regulations. I believe in there's certain rules that you have to abide by. And I feel like the whole thing, like, because I live here now in California, the whole thing with the Hondureños coming here with the caravans, and I felt like that's kind of like a forceful entry, and that doesn't look good in my eyes, and it doesn't make us Latin people good either, because it's like we're trying to force. I understand, I do see both sides. I see the need of it, but the way they're making it look is like there isn't a process as to when you can come in here legally. And it's very hard, especially when you're in that situation, that you're trying to look for somewhere where you can actually benefit and grow and have some type of stability, as to living poor. I completely understand, but there's ways and there's process and there's certain ways to do things. Now living here and considering the United States being more so my country, that I can understand both sides, and it's a conflict within my mind to be able to see and understand both sides, because there is right on both ends.
And of course, everyone has different views when it comes to the immigration process and how people are coming into this country. And I agree with you. I mean, there is processes that would have to be followed. However, I believe there has to be a better way. That's my view on it.
Right, the process has to change. It's not that, and a lot, like I said, because I spoke to my mother one day. We were just talking about the whole situation, and she's like, the president this and that, and I'm like, look, Mom, you have to look at both sides. I understand where you're coming from, and she's like, I won't let my Latin people down, but I'm like, but you have to understand also that you cannot account for who you're actually allowing to come into this country unless you go through that process. If people are bum rushing, by the thousands, yes, there's going to be a lot of bad people that get through there. Not to say that there's a specific country or a culture or a race that has all these bad people, because there's bad in every culture and every race and everything. So, but it's harder to just allow the mass come in, to be able to see who you should be letting in.
Absolutely.
Because you can't just allow everybody in.
And you're right. I mean, we do have to, like I said, we do have to have those parameters in place. Now, you bring up your mother, and I do know your mother raised you. So tell us a little bit about how it was you being raised by your mom. I do know a little bit of the backstory, but if you would like to share that, please do.
Well, yeah, I mean, my mom raised me until I was 3 years old. I mean, she was very young when she had me. She left me when I was 3 years old in El Salvador, and she migrated to the United States. When I was 6, that's when she sent for me and my aunt, and my cousins. It was 4 of us that came at one time. It was a little difficult because the way I see it is that I didn't understand what she was going through. I mean, she was young. By the time I was 6, she was still wanting to party. She still wanted to have a young life, enjoy life. And unfortunately, I was part of her life now. Things happen, and it was hard me growing up with a young mother, especially because that's why I attached myself so much to my aunt, because that's who she left me with. And she helped raise me. Now she's older, and I saw her more as a mother figure. My mom, when I got back with her, when I came back to the States, she was still young. She didn't have me for 3 years. It was an adjustment that me having to see her. I mean, I always knew she was my mother. My aunt never told me that she was my mom or anything like that. She always made sure that I knew who my mom was and everything. But for me, when I came to 6 years old, I mean, I already had so much instilled in me by my aunt that, my mom, seeing her in a different way, not seeing her the way that my aunt treated me, I started forming like this. I became very judgmental as the way that she was raising me. Now, as an adult and years passed by, and, we've had our struggles, I actually sat back one day and just started thinking, and I was like, wow, I couldn't have imagined me being a 20-year-old, 23-year-old with a little kid and trying to live my life and also trying to raise a kid, and her, and not having my father in the picture, and knowing that she was the only one that I had as a parent, made me see her in a different light. So it took time and process. And I tell her all the time that I was her guinea pig. So, yeah.
Pretty cute guinea pig ain't that, right?
Yeah, and finally, after so many years, I understood her and I understand that also there's no right way or wrong way of parenting. Everybody has their own different ways. Nobody gets an instruction manual with your kid when they're born. So, as a kid, yes, it was a little bit harder, but as I got older, I guess that experiences with her, I would just just grew with her, and we learned to adapt to each other. I mean, we used to have fights, we used to argue, but now she's probably like one of my closest friends, my best friends. I confide in her everything and anything. There's no shame or anything. I mean, that's my mom, and I tell her that she's my father as well.
Mm-hmm. Do you find that to be a common thread when it comes to children who are raised by a single parent, that they kind of adapt to looking at whoever that sole provider is, looking at them as both roles?
It is. It's hard to see because I also had my struggles with my father, so it took a while to see both roles in my mom. But my mom also had my aunt, but I was basically just raised by women. I have different aunts that were involved in my life. The only male figure that I had in my life was my uncle, which he was 7 years older than me. So when I was 7 and we started getting a lot closer, he was still learning to be a man himself. So it was very difficult, but the toughness between all the women in my life has made me a very tough man. and it's just absurd. Like it just baffles me to think that because I consider myself to be a very strong person, to be very motivated, and it's just I never got that from my dad, and it all came from them, which were my mom and my aunts.
Awesome. So the question that I have now is, because you opened up this great conversation, is how, and I want to phrase this correctly, how did your mindset help you to forgive and grow that bond with your mom and with the women, that raised you in your life?
It was a process. It was a long process of me growing up and just seeing things in a different way and having my own experiences in life. Knowing that it's not easy being an adult in its own, and throw a kid at a young age, it's even tougher. So I just sat back and looked at my life, how difficult it was on my own with no kids, and started picturing her at a younger age in a different time, trying to raise myself, trying to raise me. And it wasn't as easy. And that's what made me change the way I looked at her, because I'm like, wow, she actually put up a lot of work just to keep me here. And I'm still alive, I'm still breathing. I've always had a roof over my head, I always had food. So once I looked at that, I started appreciating everything she did, more so of judging that fact that I thought that I was missing something.
Interesting. And did you ever feel that you had to go through a low before you actually got up? In other words, did you ever feel down? Did you feel like, wow, you hit rock bottom? And what made you come out of that rock bottom?
I think life has I've had a lot of ups and downs. I have had bottoms, but with life and time, with the years, and you talk to people, and I like talking to people and hearing their story, their lives, and you get to learn that I didn't have it as bad as I thought. But to me, it was bad because I was facing that. That was the worst in my life at the moment. And then I started seeing other people having it worse than me, and I was like, wow, I didn't really have that bad.
And that's true, because there is that saying out there that says, well, if you think you have it bad, go hear somebody else's story. And that's very true. And I know with myself, and you and I know my backstory as well. I'm not saying that, oh my God, it was really, really bad, but I have heard other stories that are far more exceed where I have been in my lifetime. With those obstacles, did you ever feel at any time that you made a difference in someone else's life? Because we all go through obstacles. How did you use those obstacles to inspire others around you?
Well, I inspire people as much as I can. I try to send out a positive vibe to everybody. I've met people that are very negative. I've met people where I could easily just go and say good morning, and they'll be like, oh, what's so good about it? And my answer is always like, you're awake.
Exactly. You're above ground, okay?
Don't take the little things for granted. Just opening your eyes. Life is what it is. It's not the greatest. You have to find the good in every day. And there is good in every day. But people tend, for some reason, I feel like it's a lot easier to focus on the negativity than to actually make a positive impression in people. And I try to do that because a while back, they have that, movies and TV shows. People are always like, back in the days, like, oh, what's the meaning of life? What's the meaning of life? And I was like, I don't know. For a long time, I was like, I don't know what the meaning. But then I started realizing that question, I just want to portray to myself instead of an overall in general. And I finally got an answer to that question for myself, and I was like, I just want to be happy. Staying positive makes me accomplish that daily.
Wow, that's so awesome. I love the way you talk about that. Now, as far as that positive outlook, how do you express that? Is there a way that you find to express your positive feelings and to put it out there? Do you do something, do you read? I mean, what is it that you do to express those positive feelings?
I pay attention. I pay attention to people. I read people. I read little details, signs. Life has a way of showing you so many beautiful things that people don't care to look at, and it's right in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't read anything like positivity books. I pretty much psychologically work on myself. Mentally, I try to prepare myself. I mean, I've had my dark moments where it's so dark that I just isolate myself. But in those dark moments, at the same time, I sit there and I think, trying to find a solution. Because I always feel like if there's not a solution, move on. There's no reason why you should be wasting your time on certain things. But if you can find a solution, fix it, get happy, find something positive. Life it really is what it is. It's gonna throw a lot of obstacles in your way. It either makes you stronger, puts you down, but life itself will let you know how strong you really are.
Absolutely. And there is a solution for everything, every problem, every obstacle that we face. There are so many people who do get fixated on, oh, well, I can't figure this out, or I'm never going to get out of this situation. And you and I both know that you can get out of this situation. I mean, you yourself are a great example, being raised by women, coming into this country as an illegal immigrant and learning how to adapt, to being here in a country that's really foreign to you. There are so many ways that we can learn how to adapt and get through those obstacles and struggles. For me, my personal way of getting through obstacles is writing. Do you have a particular artist style that you do?
As growing up, especially in the 80s, I got into graffiti a lot, but I also do a lot of cartoons. I like doing creative things. I've noticed that I like to create things because I've always been involved in a lot of stuff that portrays to me creating something. I went to school for music. My favorite part was actually sitting in the studio and watching an instrument individually get recorded and come up with this beautiful song. I like cooking. I mean, I find passion in that because I'm creating something. It's something that it's coming out of my mind. I mean, I get ideas from everything, and I just start creating. I'll write a poem. I also write. I also draw little things. I mean, just things to. But sometimes for me, it gets difficult because I feel like my mind goes faster than what I can actually put out. Like if I'm drawing something, I think I have a problem with holding focus in certain things because I'll start drawing, and it's unfortunate that once I finish, I'm not the happiest because I was going too fast mentally that I wasn't able to draw it as fast as I was thinking.
Interesting. Now, when you're drawing, where do you find or feel where that inspiration comes from? Because everybody has a muse, so to speak. So where do you feel that comes from?
I don't know. It's just a passion that I always had. I don't know. I think my uncle probably used to draw, and I picked it up from him because I thought it was the coolest thing that he would just sit there and come up with these cartoons and everything. I mean, he let it go a long time ago, but for some reason I picked it up and I just started going with it, and it just elevated to a point where I'm like, okay, I love this. This is me. I have art supplies for days. I mean, I haven't done it in so long because now, of course, life took over and I have, responsibilities. I have to work. I have to do all these other things. So I don't do it as much, but I used to carry at least a sketchbook with me and just sit there and sketch whatever came to mind. I mean, at one point, I think I wanted to draw a clown, and I just started drawing a clown, and I was kind of happy what came out because actually with those, I didn't even think. I was just going.
Oh, wow.
It was just, it wasn't like, because when I actually think and I have a picture in mentally, it doesn't come out on paper as I thought of it.
Awesome. And I'm still waiting for you to draw me something.
I will. I haven't drawn in a long time.
I know. But do you like a particular cartoon? I mean, I like actually, my favorite cartoon was Bugs Bunny back in the day, but we won't speak about that. So what about you?
I like all kinds of stuff. I'm a big comic book fan. I I feel like lately, in the last 10 years, with the whole Marvel MCU universe, that it's actually brought like a part of my childhood to life. And I've always liked but I could never replicate that type of art.
Mm-hmm.
I'm more of a cartoon type, but I've always been fascinated to see how all these artists can come up with, human anatomy and be able to put it in different poses and give a story and have all these different little things in one, and it makes my imagination run wild when I start reading like a comic book.
Oh, wow. Wow. And is it Marvel or DC that you like? You said Marvel, I think?
I like Marvel, but I'm probably one of the biggest Superman fans, and reason behind that is because I think that one of the first few superhero movies that my aunt took me to go see in El Salvador was the first Superman.
So you do know that there is a Superman movie coming out, and I believe Robert Pattinson, I believe the actor who played in Twilight, is supposed to be playing Batman. What do you think of that? There's a lot of pros and cons that are with it. A lot of people are on the fence. Some people are like, no, he shouldn't be in it. So what do you think?
I say give him a chance. I mean, I'm a big Wolverine fan, and Jack, what's his name? Human Jack,
Wolverine?
Yeah.
Okay.
I forget the
Hugh
actor's
Jackman.
name. Hugh Jackman, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Him. When I first heard that he was casted for Wolverine, I was like, no, I don't like it. But now I couldn't see anybody else as Wolverine.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's true.
He created such a good character of Wolverine that I'm like, wow, he became him.
Absolutely. I love the fact that when I first saw that series and he came out, I was like you, I was like, oh my God, this guy is really going to play Wolverine? But he did such a fine performance in that series itself, and even in the own movie, I believe it was Wolverine that came out, he just did a knockout job, and I couldn't see anybody else playing him. But years from now, they'll probably have somebody else playing him, so who really knows. But Mauricio, one thing I do want to ask you, what positive message would you like to leave our listeners today?
Don't stop. Just do. Don't think twice. Go with your gut. Life is, I can't express how much I even tell my brother and my sister that life's not easy. Learn how to find enjoyment in each day and just go for whatever you want, because it is capable of accomplishment.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for that. Listen, I have to tell you, on a personal note, it has been a privilege to have you, one of my best friends, on this show today. You are such a light, and I just love how you speak so eloquently when it comes to positivity, and you definitely inspire me. So thank you so very much for being a part of the Speak to Tisha podcast. I look forward to having more conversations with you actually on this show in the future. And again,
I would love it.
Yeah, I definitely, don't be a stranger.
No, of course. No, not at all.
Yeah. So again, thank you. And Mauricio, I will be looking forward to so much more from you, especially with your artwork and more positive messages. So Mauricio, thank you for being part of Speak to Tisha.
You're welcome.
This segment is sponsored by Global Resources Organization, where innovation meets possibility. For more information, please visit www.globalresourcesorganization.com.